Welcome to the EDG Weekly News Update. I'm Julia Kempton.
And I'm Shirvan Putluri. Today's story is about Myanmar, where a military dictatorship, the Tatmadaw, is using its decades-long investment in controlling the Burmese economy to fund a war against its own people.
Myanmar spent decades in a repressive military rule until the 2000s, when an opposition government spearheaded by Aung San Suu Kyi formed a civilian government and the military appeared to concede to a form of joint compromise. In 2016, however, the military began genocidal attacks on members of the Rohingya minority in Rakhine State, where the civilian government did little. In February 2021, the Tatmadaw took power in a military coup, arresting San Suu Kyi, shooting protesters, and arresting thousands. Student protesters and opposition doctors and activists joined other armed groups based around Myanmar's minority ethnic communities and launched a guerrilla movement. In the first year after the coup, more than 1,500 people were killed by security forces, according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, Burma.
This past week, the Tatmadaw pardoned almost 3,000 political prisoners ahead of the Burmese New Year, but its relation to the Burmese population has become more so characterized by overwhelming violence and oppression.
Pa Diagye, a village in Myanmar, were bombed by the ruling military junta, leaving an estimated 168 people, including 40 children and 28 pregnant women, dead. They had gathered to celebrate the opening of a new village hall set up by the junta's domestic opponents. This was not an isolated incident. The military, which has struggled to suppress resistance to its reign, has increasingly resorted to airstrikes to combat its opponents. Over 600 airstrikes have been recorded since military rule began.
Immediately after the coup, the U.S. imposed sanctions against the Myanmar Economic Corporation and Myanmar Economic Holdings, two military conglomerates with diverse holdings across the Burmese economy, indicative of the depth of Myanmar's military-industrial complex. Last month, the U.S. Treasury Department announced additional sanctions meant to stop the supply of jet fuel to the Tatmadaw. These accompanied further sanctions on Min Aung Hlaing, the leader of the Tatmadaw, as well as other senior officials in the Burmese government. Today, 161 entities in Myanmar, companies and individuals, are sanctioned by the U.S. under the Magnitsky Act.
But Western sanctions have had very little impact. In 2020, China and Thailand combined accounted for more than half of Myanmar's trade volume, a number that's pretty much stayed flat or risen since U.S. oil and gas companies have withdrawn from the Burmese market because of sanctions. Prior to the coup, Singapore was Myanmar's largest foreign investor, earning $11 billion from 2015 to 2020. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, has censored Myanmar, but not taken action. And the problem isn't just the availability of economic support, however begrudging, from China and its sphere of influence. Sanctions or economic pressures against the Burmese elite are further complicated by the fact that the Tatmadaw does not operate like a traditional army, or even like most military dictatorships. It has been described as something akin to a religious cult, and it owns businesses across Myanmar's economy.
The Tatmadaw's stranglehold over Myanmar's economy and the resulting instability has led the country to an economic standstill. Being in the midst of a civil war means that tourism has taken a major hit, with almost no one entering the country. The chaos has led to the banking system to barely work. The kyat, or local currency of Myanmar, trades on the black market for a steep discount of its official price. Even as Min Aung Hlaing makes promises to promote nuclear and electric vehicles within the country, the Burmese struggle for electricity even in Yangon, their economic capital.
Myanmar has shown that the cost of war, especially civil war, is not only human but also economic. And it has shown that dictators may make that trade-off, may isolate their countries almost entirely, negating the impact of Western sanctions and playing only superficially to Chinese economic demands in order to stay in power. Now, on to our meeting.